Alrighty, welcome back in. We're now going to be continuing the Major League recap from Sunday's action of baseball. Starting with the Atlanta Braves, and they're taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. Phillies would prevail in this one. 5-4 would be the final score, getting their first win of the season. They are now 1-2, and with the loss, the Atlanta Braves are now 2-1. Matt Stram would pick up his first win of the season, while Aaron Bummer suffered the loss. Jose Alvarado would pick up the first save of the year. The Los Angeles Angels were continuing their series with the Baltimore Orioles. 4-1 would be the final score. The Angels finally got their first win of the season. They are now 1-2. The Orioles are 2-1. Reed Detmers would get his first win of the season. Tyler Wells would suffer the loss, and Carlos Estevez would pick up the first save of the year. The Blue Jays and Rays were continuing their 4-game series. The Jays would even it up. Both these teams are now sitting at 2-2. 9-2 would be the final score in this one. Mitch White picked up the first win of the season, while Sean Armstrong suffered the loss. The Brewers were continuing their series with the New York Mets. 4-1 would be the final score. They are still a perfect 3-0. Colin Rea would pick up the first win of the season. Tyler Megal would suffer the loss, and Joel Payamps would get the first save of the year. The Pittsburgh Pirates took on the Miami Marlins. 9-7 would be the final score. The Pirates are now a perfect 4-0 on the season, while the Marlins are still looking for their first win. 0-4 is where they stand at the end of this matchup. David Bednar would get his first win of the season. Tanner Scott would suffer the first loss of the year, and Hunter Stratton would pick up the first save for the Pirates. The Washington Nationals were taking on the Cincinnati Reds. The final score would be 6-5. The Reds are now 2-1. The Washington Nationals are 1-2. Lucas Sims would get the first win of the season. He's now 1-0. Kyle Finnegan would suffer the first loss of the year. He is now 0-1. The Minnesota Twins were continuing their series with the Kansas City Royals, and I think the Royals just got fed up after losing the first 2 games of the season. They blew out the Twins 11-0 would be the final score. The Royals are now 1-2. The Twins suffered their first loss of the year, 2-1. Brian Singer would pick up his first win of the year, and Bailey Ober would suffer the loss. The New York Yankees were continuing their series with the Houston Astros. 4-3 would be the final score on this one. The Yankees are now a perfect 4-0, and the Houston Astros are 0-4. Nick Birdie would get the first win of the year. Josh Hader suffered the first loss, and Clay Holmes would pick up his third save of the season. The Detroit Tigers were taking on the Chicago White Sox. 3-2 would be the final score. The Tigers are now a perfect 3-0, while the Sox are still looking for their first win of the year, 0-3. Tyler Holton would pick up the first win of the year. Steven Wilson suffered the loss, and Jason Foley would pick up his second save of the season. The Chicago Cubs were continuing their series with the defending MLB champions, the Texas Rangers. They would finally get their first win of the season. 9-5 would be the final score. They are now 1-2. The Texas Rangers are now 2-1. Hector Neris would pick up the first win of the year. Jose Leclerc would suffer the loss, 0-1. The Cleveland Guardians were taking on the Oakland A's. 4-3 would be the final score. The A's finally getting their first win of the season. 1-3 is where they stand at the end of this particular matchup. While the Guardians suffered their first loss, they're 3-1. Danny Jimenez would pick up their first win, and Barlow would suffer his first loss of the year. The Boston Red Sox were continuing their series with the Seattle Mariners. 5-1 would be the final score. Both of these teams are now sitting at 2-2. Garrett Whitlock would pick up his first win. Bryce Miller would suffer his first loss. And Justin Slayton would pick up his first save of the year. The San Francisco Giants were continuing their series with the San Diego Padres. The Padres would win big. 13-4 would be the final score. With that, the Padres are back to 500, 3-3. And after the loss, as the Giants are in the same boat, except they obviously have 2 less games played, they are sitting at 2-2. Pedro Avila would pick up the first win, and Dalton Jeffries would pick up his first loss of the year. Off to Arizona, where we have the Diamondbacks continuing their series with the Colorado Rockies. 5-1 would be the final score in this one. With the victory, the Arizona Diamondbacks are now sitting at 3-1. And with the loss, the Rockies are 1-3. Brandon Pfaadt would pick up the first win of the year, and Ryan Feltner would suffer his first loss of the season. Alrighty, the last game from Sunday took place in Los Angeles, where we had the Dodgers playing host to the St. Louis Cardinals. This one would be a close contest. 5-4 would be the final score. With the victory, the Dodgers are now improved to 4-2, and after the loss, the Cardinals are now 2 games below 500, sitting at 1-3. Nabil Crismatt would pick up the first win of the year. John King would suffer his first loss, and Daniel Hudson would get his first save of the year for the Dodgers. Alrighty, that takes care of my recap from Sunday's action of the Major League Baseball. As always, if you're new to this channel and you like this type of content, please feel free to hit the sub button. I'd be very grateful and very appreciative. Until next time, take care.